So in this video, I'm going to kind of give you the basics of how to use Examity. I'll put some of the FAQs in a Word doc for you as well, but this will just get you started. First off, by default, most of the time when you make a Canvas course space, Examity is available. So the way that you can tell that is you'll see it over here in the listing, and there won't be a little crossed out I. So you'll see these have a crossed out I, this doesn't. So when you see that, you'll know, okay, this is available. But what if it isn't? So maybe you turned it off, maybe something when you set it up didn't have it, but now I have it set up so that you cannot see Examity, and if that's the case, you need to add it in. So to do that, you come over to Settings. Usually it'll show up on the course details. So you're going to need to come from this page and go over to Navigation. And then this is the things that the students can see. These are all the things the students can't see. So you need to find Examity in that list. It might not be first. It just kind of depends on what your setup looks like, and drag it down. And then once you drag it in here, that's going to tell the computer program, okay, please let the students see this. Now you have to come down here and click Save, or it will not save, and it'll just keep not being there. I'm going to first walk you through Examity, and then we'll talk about options for how to do the exam. So you'll click on Examity. You'll tell it how you want to log in. You'll come over to Courses and Exams. Obviously, I have a few here. You're just going to see the exams that you have. This edits the course. There's not really anything you should need to do here. You can basically just ignore that. Please don't hit the trash can. That deletes the course. That is bad. And then the little paper is add an exam. So you can come in here. You can name the exam something obvious. Then the exam level, you only have one option. It's level 3. That's the highest level proctoring. You'll set the duration of the exam. I highly recommend using this as your duration set, and if you are using something like Canvas to actually run the exam, just leave that without any duration set. I promise it will save you a lot of time and frustration, because if there is an issue with the Canvas exam, there's no human being behind Canvas to say, oh, I should change this for them. You have to do it manually. In this case, there is a human being, and they can adjust as needed without needing you to tell them exactly what to do. If you are running the exam on Canvas, you'll put the link in here. So this basically tells the proctor, here is where you go to let the student take the exam. For the exam start time and date and end time and date, this doesn't need to be related to this time. For instance, maybe you want a 3-hour window for the students. And here you would put the earliest that they can start, and here you would put the latest that they can end. That way, that's especially useful. So if you have like 400 students, they aren't all taking it at exactly the same time. If you want flexibility, you can, of course, make that an entire day, which is really nice for the students, but then you have to account for the fact that the students could tell other students what's on the exam. If that's something that for your class doesn't matter, fine. I think most of us are going to want to keep that window pretty tight so that nobody can start and finish the exam before other people have started it. Here we have upload a file. This can be for a few different things. I have used it for giving the entire exam, which is especially useful if you only need to give maybe 1 or 2 exams this way and you don't want to have to program the entire thing into Canvas. It's worthwhile to go ahead and upload a file and just not have to type the whole thing into Canvas. The students can upload a paper sheet back, and that's a really fast way if you only have 1 or 2 students. However, if you have a lot of students, you're probably not going to want to do that because there's a lot of issues with students uploading files wrong and just a variety of other problems. In that case, you're going to want to use the Canvas link instead. I still often use this upload a file button because if you're here and you have an exam equation sheet, for instance, some computers have a little bit of a hard time seeing the exam equation sheet. So I'll a lot of times use this to upload that. You can upload multiple files. The other thing I've often used it for is sometimes Canvas can be finicky about pictures. And it'll look fine on certain computers, and on other computers it won't load at all. So often I will take every picture that I have in an exam and I will put it on one sheet with the question numbers next to it. And then I'll upload that in here too, so that if the students are having trouble viewing it on Canvas, they have this PDF right there that says, oh, for question number 3, this is the graph that's supposed to be there if Canvas is finicky, which it often is. For the exam username and password, username isn't really something you need to use. Password is if you're on Canvas. So this won't be available to the students. When we get into Canvas, I'll show you how to password protect it. And what that does is the proctor will then have the password. The proctor will take control of the computer, the student's computer, and log into the exam for them. filling in that password for them where the students can't see it. And that just lets that exam stay safe where students can't access it unless it's being proctored. So I'll show you that when we get into Canvas. In here, you can say need for extended time and or special accommodation. You can click yes. And then this is how you're going to deal with disability issues. So you'll see the directions that you can see here. You'll click on particular students on the dashboard, select edit for that student, and then enter the details. So you'll need to do this, unfortunately, for every student who has DSC accommodations that needs to take the exam online. But it's really not too bad, even if you have 10 students or so. Now down here, you'll see student upload a file. This is going to depend on how you set up your exam. If you're going straight through Canvas and you don't need them to draw anything, you don't need them to upload anything, then you're going to say no. However, if you give them a paper exam, and by paper, I mean virtual paper, you upload a file, and you need them to upload that entire exam back, you'll need to click yes. Or if you're doing something in between. So often what I do for my online classes is I'll run it through Canvas, and I'll have some multiple choice, I'll have some number, I'll have some really easy to answer versions for those sorts of things. But then I also have one question that they need to draw something, and I'll have the students upload that one question. And so if you need to do anything like that, go ahead and click yes. It will set up standard rules for you. So these rules are the rules that are just automatically put in. I can't particularly imagine that you would want to undo any of those. I guess if you want to, you could probably put in these special instructions. These are really basic just to make sure that there's no cheating. You'll see things like no dual monitors because of the tech issues that the Examity has, that they need to have that connected to a power source, because otherwise if it dies in the middle and the student says, well, I need to go get my power cord, they have no way of making sure that they're just getting their power cord and not looking up answers. These should really just all stay as is. Now, additional rules, that's where they have some options for you. These will not go on to the additional rules unless you check them. So you can check them to go ahead and add them in. These are ones that people will frequently add. Obviously, bathroom breaks are kind of a tricky thing because you don't want people to be sitting there not using the bathroom, but they're not going to bring the webcam in the bathroom with them. It depends on your trustworthiness of the students and your personal desires there. Same idea kind of with drink on the desk. Most students are going to want water, but do you want to deal with cheating on that? With any of these, you can also add special instructions. So let's say you're fine with them having a drink on the desk, but you want it to be in a clear container. You could write that down here. You can also write other things, to and including things like you want them to be able to visit one website, but no other ones. Anything of that sort. Usually for me, I end up having to put in special instructions about the file upload. If you're going to have them upload a file for Gradescope, you need to make sure that you put in special instructions for the upload, because Gradescope needs to be a PDF, and most of the students, if not given other instructions, will just give you a JPEG or a TIFF or whatever their camera takes a picture in. So you need to give special instructions here saying it must be uploaded as a PDF. I would also suggest, if you're going to do that, to make sure to email the students about it with some sort of thing to catch their attention and read it, because cameras on phones don't take pictures in PDFs unless you use some sort of special app. And so they're going to need to download an app to do that. It's not a big deal, but they won't do it automatically. So then once you're all done, you can save the exam. It's probably not going to let me do that because I didn't do enough. If you don't have a URL because you're doing it purely on paper, you can just put in any sort of placeholder and it will usually accept it. Okay, so now you can come into here and you can click on exam status. I'm going to go into one of my other courses and see if it'll let me. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to pull down my lecture A so you can kind of see what some of these look like. If you have a bunch of assignments in your Canvas, it's going to automatically pull all of those. Just ignore them. They don't matter. But here you can see that I do have a final exam and a midterm. And so you can see those listed. And you can click edit. And you can come in here. You can change things as it goes. So let's say all of a sudden you realize, shoot, I made a mistake on my uploaded file. I'm not going to do it, but you could exit out and then re-upload something. Be okay. You can change your username and password. You can kind of do whatever needs to be done. You can also see how some of the special instructions work. And I forgot to mention this on the other side. You can give special instructions to either the proctor or the student or both. I think for the most case, you're going to want to do both. Here, I give special instructions because I want everything written on the exam sheet. I give special instructions about how to send it. In my case, I was having them do it by email because it was an older version of Examity and wouldn't let them upload a file, so that's changed a little bit. You can put instructions about, for instance, graphing calculators. Because I let the students use graphing calculators, it's just I get to look at them. Obviously, I can't look at the students. I have them just clear the memory, and they have to show it to the proctor so that I can go in and look and see that they did that. And so I try to put in any instruction that I'm going to give to an in-class in here, especially because in my case, oftentimes I'm doing both. And from a fairness standpoint, I absolutely have to do that. So you can put as many as you need in. And then when you have an exam status that actually is kind of open and working, you'll be able to see them all listed in here. And you'll just have a list of students. Because I don't have any current ones, and all of them have kind of finished quite some time ago, I don't have any students, but you'll see their ID. This is pulled from Canvas, pulled from Canvas, pulled from Canvas, pulled from Canvas, pulled from what you input, what time they're scheduled. This will just always be the level 3, and then this will be kind of what's going on here. So you'll see some options there. And then this is the flag level. So what that means is that the proctors will flag the videos based on if there's any sort of cheating. If it's green, that's definitely absolutely fine. Good to go. Yellow, possible violation. Okay, that tends to generally be something like someone walked in the room, they're taking it in their bedroom, and their mom came in and asked if they wanted food, and now it gets reported as a possible violation because there was a person there. I think it probably 3 out of 4 exams that I've given have possible violations on them, and they've never actually been a real violation. That doesn't mean you shouldn't check it. I always go in and check it, but it's almost always something silly. And then the violation is, okay, they were caught doing something. So if you see red, go in, deal with it. That's they did something wrong. I have had one case where it wasn't cheating. It was just kind of, they made a stupid mistake. So don't automatically see the red violation and don't look at it and just trust it. Do go in and look at it. And the way that you'll do that is you'll see a view over here. You'll see a little button. You can click on it, and basically you can theoretically watch every student take the exam if you have that kind of time on your hands. For the most part, you're just going to look at the flags, come in, view the flags, make sure everything is okay, and then you'll be fine. The blue alert is for something other than a violation. Maybe the student had a problem and they had to get a hold of you, and so there was some time off. Just basically anything that they would want you to see. And then when you click on this view, the video will come up with a flag on it, so you can go directly to the flag. You don't have to watch the whole thing looking for the situation that happened. That's basically all there is to know about how to use Examity. So now we just have to talk about the issue of how to actually give the exams, how to actually make the exams. And this is really sort of personal to how you want to do things. And in this case, personal to how bad the situation is. How many students are you dealing with? So let's go back to Canvas. If you have a pure multiple choice exam, or even just a multiple choice or enter plain numbers or text, basically you don't have to draw anything. And you have a reasonable number of students taking the exam, I would highly suggest doing it in Canvas. So to do that, you'll come over to quizzes. You'll make a new quiz. You'll name this something. You can type in, this is general instructions. So you can type in sort of what you would normally say to the students. This would be a graded quiz if it's an exam. You can go ahead and put it in whatever assignment group you have if you set this up. If you haven't set up assignment groups, it won't be there, and you can just type it in however. If you want shuffle answers, if you're typing in a multiple choice exam where you already kind of have the answers in the order you want, I wouldn't do this. If you're making the exam on the spot and you don't want to have to worry about appropriately shuffling questions in your head, you could go ahead and do that. I don't tend to actually use the shuffle answers. Here's the time limit button. I highly suggest avoiding this because, again, you are telling a computer system what to do. And if there is a problem with the students, the proctoring service cannot adjust this. So for example, let's say you put a 60-minute exam in here. The proctoring service logs the student on, that 60 minutes starts. Some tech support issue happens, and the student loses 5 minutes. If you have the time in Examity, what will happen is the Examity proctor will say, okay, well, you lost 5 minutes due to this tech support issue. You shouldn't have lost that. I'm going to add that on to the end, which is very reasonable, and they are intelligent enough to handle that. If you put that in here and you put 60 minutes in here, the Canvas will log them out as 60 minutes, and there is nothing that anyone except you can do about it, which means that the student will then have to contact you. You will have to go in and manually do this, at which point the student has probably already finished the exam, and all disaster will ensue, and they'll be very upset, and you will waste a lot of time. So leave this unchecked. Do the time limit in Examity. It will save you a lot of trouble. Allow multiple attempts. Usually for an exam, you're not going to really want to do that. That's more of like a quiz thing where you're going to want to let them keep as many options as they want. When I do little video assignments and things like that, they can take as many chances as they want to get a perfect grade. Probably don't want to do that with an exam. Let students see their quiz responses. This is kind of up to you. When they get all done with the exam, do you want them to be able to see that or not? Most of the time, I would say for a midterm, of course you would want to, unless that midterm is something that you're going to reuse constantly and you're not really using it for formative feedback. For a final exam, and especially for the common final, please make sure that this is not checked. We do not really want the students to have the questions for the common final. We don't want them to be able to see the exam. So make sure if this is for a common final, you uncheck that. One more time, if it is for a common final, make sure that that is not checked. All right, show one question at a time. I can't imagine why you would want to do this. To me, that is just not good test taking skills, but maybe there's some example where that would come up. I highly suggest not doing that unless you have a very specific reason. Quiz restrictions. If this is a proctor's exam, you want an access code because otherwise the students can come in and take it unproctored whenever they feel like, which is a problem. So make sure that this is checked. Make sure you have a password that is not super easy for them to guess. You know, a lot of times you want if you do like a last name and the course code, the students might be able to guess that. It won't tell you that the students are guessing. So try to make it something either completely random or something that you'll remember, but the students would never guess. Filter IP addresses, don't click that unless you know why you're doing it. So then here, assign. I would honestly just leave all of this blank. Assign it to everybody, leave this blank. Again, the reason for that being is that you can type all of that into Examity, where a human being who has critical thinking skills of some level can look at it and decide whether an exception needs to be made. If you put a due date in here and you put available and you put all of this in here, and something comes up with a student, now you have to add another special assignment to them. To just that one or two people, which it's just too much work. You don't want to do that. You want to handle all of this in Examity and leave this very open, very friendly to everything. So you can save it. Make sure that you also publish it. So you can either do save and publish or publish separately. I highly suggest doing that immediately when you make the exam. The reason being is the students still can't access it because of that code. You put in a password, you put in a required password, they can see that there's a midterm testing assignment, they can click on it, and they can see this. Well, except the access code. But they can't actually start it, they can't do anything with it. The reason I say that is because if you wait to publish it until the day of, if you forget, it's bad. It's very, very bad. So just publish it right away, save yourself that hassle. All right. And then you'll basically be good to go. Now, remember when we were over here in Examity and we were making exams and we were in here and I said, this is the link that you're going to put in a Canvas link or something of that sort. This link up here, once you've made everything and once you're back to the screen, this link is going to be what you put in there. And this access code that you put in here, please make a better access code than that, of course, is what you're going to put in for the exam password. That's how you do it with Canvas. You can theoretically use any quiz making, exam making software that you want to do this in, but the more software you use, the more you're going to confuse students. So I would suggest just either using Canvas or using a paper. If you only have one or two students that need this, this is kind of a better case scenario where you have a couple of students who are out, but we are still fully running classes and most people are there. Perhaps you don't want to actually make a full midterm. in which case you would just upload a file and you wouldn't have to do any of this. I didn't show you how to make questions, so let's do that. So let's go back to editing the exam. I usually like to save it after I've set this up. And then often I'll have the TAs programming the questions. So you come over to questions, you type in new question, you type in type of choice. So there's lots of different options that you can play with. You can type in here your questions. If you have multiple choice, you'll have your correct answers here. This is where it may be useful. You can rearrange these by making that the correct answer or this the correct answer. But you can also just randomize the order so you don't have to worry about it. One thing to note here is inserting media is you cannot just copy and paste media in. If you do, it'll look fine on your computer. Everything will look perfect and the students won't be able to see it and it will be a mess. So the way you want to embed media is to come up into here where it says embed media and embed media this way. Usually what I have the TAs do is I have a folder in here that they can, well, I make them make the folder, but they'll make a folder and they'll upload the pictures from the exam. And they can name it. They could theoretically also, I guess, upload it into some sort of picture file sharing program like Flickr. Or if they have a Flickr, they can put it straight from Flickr and input it that way. Again, Canvas can be really, really finicky with pictures. My suggestion would also be to make a PDF with every picture that you have on the exam with the question number next to it and upload it into Examity as a file. Of course, that's not perfect because that means those pictures are going to be available to them. They'll download it to their computer, so they'll be able to see those. And if you're trying to keep your exams really, kind of on lockdown, they are going to have those pictures, but it'll save you a lot of problems if you are able to do that in some form, because it's frustrating because the pictures will look absolutely perfect on Canvas for you and even for your TAs, but it's one operating system, one specific browser, and it won't load, and you won't know who that is. So usually if I have 20 students taking it, one of them will have problems with pictures, which is fine if you only have 2 or 3 students taking it. Most likely it won't be one of them, but if you have 400 taking it, there's going to be problems. So you'll type in all your questions that way. You can see this can get kind of tedious to type in all the questions if you're doing it for 1 or 2 students. And that's when you're going to go and probably just upload a file. But remember, you're not going to do the upload file if we're talking about a common final. For that, we are going to have to have a TA plug in the questions. And if they have any questions with that, or you need help with that, or they need help with that, if anyone needs help with that, just contact me and I can help them out. All right, I think that is all the major things. I will try to go through and put all of the must-dos in a bullet point on a Word doc for you. And you can use this to kind of go through and get started, and then that as troubleshooting along the way and as a bit of a checklist. And as always, give me an email if you need help, and I can come show you in person how to do it.